I'll see you later. I'll see you much later.
We're really hoping Lethal Weapon 5 will turn things around for the franchise's Rotten Tomatoes score, especially after the last two sequels didn't fare too well. Luckily, the director and Mel Gibson have shared some promising updates about the film a year after bringing on a new writer. Here's everything you need to know about the upcoming movie. After years of speculation, it looks like Lethal Weapon 5 is finally on the way, and there are some pretty exciting updates about this legacy sequel. Fans of the buddy cop action series will remember the hilarious chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover as detectives Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh, who tackle LA's toughest criminals while driving each other crazy. The original film came out in 1987, and the franchise saw 3 more sequels, with Lethal Weapon 4 hitting theaters in 1998. Despite the franchise seeming to have wrapped up with the turn of the millennium, rumors about a 5th installment never really died down. With the rise of legacy sequels like Top Gun Maverick, news about Lethal Weapon 5 has started to surface again. Now, it looks like this long-awaited project might actually become a reality. The actor and director shared that Lethal Weapon 5 is based on a script Richard Donner was working on before he passed away, with some tweaks made by the new team. He's pretty confident about the movie and believes it will do justice as a proper sequel. Here's what Gibson had to say. "I'm going to direct the 5th film in the Lethal Weapon series. Richard Donner, who directed the first 4, sadly passed away. He was a good friend, and he sort of handed me the baton to carry on. It's an honor for me to take it on. He had made significant progress on the screenplay, so we've used what he wrote and made some adjustments. I'm really happy with it. I had a lot of fun working on it. It's got its funny moments, but it also dives into some serious issues. I'm looking forward to it." Lethal Weapon 5 is just one of many projects Mel Gibson is working on, but it's the one he has the deepest connection with. Besides starring in the original 4 films with Danny Glover, Gibson has been involved in the new installment's production since at least 2021, when he started talking about directing. With Gibson confirmed as the director and both he and Glover returning to their classic roles, this upcoming film is shaping up to be a memorable addition to the franchise. What gives hope for this legacy sequel is that it's based on a script Richard Donner wrote before he passed away. Although Donner died in July 2021, Gibson is dedicated to honoring his work and making sure his ideas make it to the screen. Given Gibson's track record with directing acclaimed films like The Passion of the Christ and Hacksaw Ridge, he's well suited to ensure the sequel respects the franchise's legacy, while also standing on its own. Though there aren't many details yet on how the film will turn out, it's shaping up to be a fitting send-off for the series. The challenge will be to balance nostalgia with fresh content, but with Gibson's vision aligning with what Donner wanted, the sequel has strong potential. Since the script is still being refined, it might be a while before we get more concrete updates. Given the incredible chemistry between Gibson and Glover in the buddy cop classic, it's no surprise that Lethal Weapon 5 is bringing them back to reprise their iconic roles. Glover's portrayal of the straight-laced Murtaugh perfectly balanced Gibson's wild Riggs, with both actors enhancing each other's performances throughout the series. As for the rest of the cast, there's no word yet on who else might return or if any new characters will be introduced, since details about the story are still under wraps. From what we know, Dan Lin described Butterworth's script for Lethal Weapon 5 as deeply personal to Richard Donner and the cast. Beyond that, details are scarce. By the end of Lethal Weapon 4, Riggs had become a father and Murtaugh had a granddaughter. Given the long gap since that movie, it makes sense to think that Lethal Weapon 5 might introduce these now adult kids as the new leads. After all, the original Murtaugh famously declared he was too old for this in the earlier films. However, reviving the franchise is no simple task. Mel Gibson, who is set to direct the sequel after Richard Donner's passing, mentioned that filming was expected to start in 2023. Yet the series faces challenges. Gibson's past controversial comments and his role in Dragged Across Concrete, where he played a corrupt, prejudiced cop, have turned many viewers away. While killing off Martin Riggs might seem like an easy fix, it's not that straightforward for this belated sequel. Shane Black's original script for Lethal Weapon 2 and the TV show's Season 2 finale both featured Riggs' death, but Lethal Weapon 5 can't follow that lead. Despite the controversies around Gibson and Riggs' aging, killing off Riggs would undermine the core of the series. The real draw for fans is the iconic chemistry between Gibson's wild Riggs and Danny Glover's steady Murtaugh. Lethal Weapon 5 promises to be exciting because it will bring Glover and Gibson back together for the first time in years. If Riggs were to be killed off, it would disrupt the series' formula and could diminish its appeal. The failure of the TV show's spin-off highlighted just how essential both actors are to the franchise's success. So Lethal Weapon 5 needs to keep Riggs around. There's no Lethal Weapon without both Gibson and Glover, and the sequel shouldn't follow the trend of iconic characters like James Bond, Luke Skywalker, or Iron Man meeting their end heroically. Riggs' death would seriously undermine Lethal Weapon 5's biggest appeal, the chemistry between Gibson and Glover. This dynamic is the main reason fans are excited for another sequel. While Lethal Weapon 2 could have potentially continued without Gibson, the franchise was at its peak in the late 80s. Since then, the canceled TV show, the disappointing Lethal Weapon 3, and the problematic Lethal Weapon 4 have tarnished the series' reputation. For Lethal Weapon 5 to reconnect with its audience and rejuvenate the franchise, it needs both of its original stars to return. If Lethal Weapon 5 kills off Riggs, it's going to lose what makes it special, the dynamic between Gibson and Glover. Fans are looking forward to this sequel mainly because of that legendary chemistry. Back in the late 80s, the franchise was riding high, and Lethal Weapon 2 might have been able to survive without Gibson, but times have changed. With the TV show's cancellation, Lethal Weapon 3 not living up to expectations, and Lethal Weapon 4 falling flat, the series isn't in the same shape it used to be. For Lethal Weapon 5 to have a real impact and win back fans, it needs both Gibson and Glover back in action. One smart move Lethal Weapon 5 can make is to learn from the mistakes of Terminator Dark Fate. This sequel stumbled despite reuniting the original stars, Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just bringing back familiar faces wasn't enough to save the film from being a critical and commercial flop. The failure of Dark Fate showed that reviving a beloved franchise isn't just about reassembling the original cast. The movie introduced new versions of classic characters in a fresh timeline, but it failed to capture the magic of Terminator 2 Judgment Day. For Lethal Weapon 5, the risk is different, but still real. As a buddy cop comedy, it's unlikely to mess with timelines. However, given Gibson's controversial role in Dragged Across Concrete, there's a risk that the film could reinvent the characters in a way that doesn't sit well with fans. The key is to respect what made the original movies great, while avoiding unnecessary changes that could alienate the audience. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. What are your thoughts on how Lethal Weapon 5 should handle Riggs and Murtaugh's return? Do you think the film can avoid the pitfalls of past revivals like Terminator Dark Fate? Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.